Hey everyone, I hope all of you are enjoying the third free title update for Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak on either your Nintendo Switch or on PC. And today what I wanted to go over is give a little bit of my opinions regarding all of the brand new changes and additions that we got to see for the third free title update. Of course, that includes the brand new monsters, the brand new Anomaly Research Quest, the of course paid layer DLC options, which is something that still is something of a hotly debated topic. The follower brand new changes where followers cannot change and follow you around, some of those adjustments as well. And of course, the brand new wave of event quests that is set to come as well. There's been a lot of information found in the recent games files as of late. I'm going to be talking about that on a separate video upcoming. I'm trying to compile all that information and present that properly as well. So we're going to be discussing some really juicy stuff relatively very soon. And of course, I want to encourage all of you watching this video to let me know in the comments what is your favorite addition for the third free title update, but more importantly, what is your least favorite addition? What is the one thing you think they decided to add that simply is just not cutting it for you? I always like to hear those contrast opinions where people always have one thing that they like more, but others hate more things that they actually like. So I always enjoy reading those comments. So essentially, I want to start this video talking about the monsters themselves, and I can't not start a video without talking about chaotic Gore Magala and just how much of a fun encounter that actually is. Now, ultimately, it doesn't necessarily seem to be that much of a challenge. It seems to kind of match the same power level or like the same power skills that it has to Shagaru Magala, really. It doesn't necessarily seem to be as weak as a Gore Magala, but as strong as a Shagaru Magala. The new attacks certainly are flashy. It certainly is a interesting monster encounter, and I've done it about 10 times or so for the banner itself, and I've had a lot of fun hunting this thing. It's been quite a lot of fun to just be able to see all the new changes. So as a monster that we were expecting for quite a while, this one has been relatively one of my favorites. The same can also be said for Risen Kushala Daora. I've talked about this multiple times, where Kushala Daora is low-key extremely dangerous and he loves to cart people and they're not necessarily ready for it. And Risen Kushala Daora is no different. This thing is a menace. It is a really tough encounter. I've seen a lot of people cart to it already. And I love the fact that it just continually moves around the map in the jungle. It's one of those monsters that you're going to just continually be chasing around. It reminds me a lot of the monster mechanics and World, where they were just continually, you had to chase them. That's just the way that game worked. And I really enjoy that. It certainly feels like a little bit of a change of pace. It also feels like it moves around more than any other monster on base Rise and even Sunbreak's editions. So it certainly feels like one of those monsters that it wants you to chase it and certainly gives you hell for it. The same cannot necessarily be said for Risen Teostra. For me, this one is probably the weakest one out of the three. I was kind of like ultimately disappointed about it. Whenever it doesn't necessarily seem to be enraged, probably the way it looks, it just looks the coolest with the purple aura around it. But then as soon as it enrages, it just kind of looks like a normal Teostra. It doesn't necessarily seem all that dangerous, and the attacks really weren't, most encounters that I did with it weren't really something that stood out more. Visually, it doesn't stand out, unlike Risen Kushala Daora once, engaged, and it just felt like a little bit of a downer. I certainly want to hear your guys' opinions on that if you are disagreeing with me in that regard, because out of all the monsters, I think Risen Teostra was probably the weakest one out of all of them, and I wasn't necessarily expecting that, to be quite honest, since he is an Elder Dragon after all. Now, when it comes to Anomaly 7 Star Investigation Quest, of course, we got a lot of monster brand new added into this brand new patch, and I think most of the brand new Anomaly Investigation versions of these monsters are actually a really good engagement. Furious Rajang is definitely the most annoying one out of all of them because it just loves to fly it up in the air and kind of become just extremely annoying to chase it. People just don't necessarily seem to have a really good time fighting this thing unless they're a gunner, which of course gunners kind of crush Rajang in general, and Furious Rajang doesn't necessarily seem to be all that different. But for melee users, it certainly feels like one of those annoying ones that they have to chase as it continually moves and jumps upward. Scorn Magnamalo is easily the most toughest one out of all of them, simply because it just has probably the most deadliest combos out of all of the brand new 7-star Anomaly Investigation monsters. Scorn Magnamalo was already one of the most dangerous monsters in the game, and now that the fact that it's anomalied, it just puts you in another level. Certainly looking forward to fighting a level 200 version of this monster. I'm not level 200 just yet, so certainly looking forward to see just how much of a danger this one is. One of the weakest ones for sure is always Seething Bazelgeuse, only because Bazelgeuse, or Bezelgeuse as it's actually supposed to be called, it just has so many weak points. You can just kind of crush it as a gunner. As Blade Masters probably have a little bit of a tougher time with it, but as a gunner, this thing is just getting crushed. So, you know, always a little bit of a disappointment, since you can just kind of maul this thing away with a couple of gunners, and it's never really going to put up a fight and really live up to its full potential. Risen Anomaly Investigation Gold Rathian though, and Risen Anomaly Investigation Silver Rathalos, to me, are definitely the versions of these monsters that I was looking to fight. Silver Rathalos is both annoying but also hits extremely hard. It is one of those monsters that I really enjoyed and had a good time fighting, and it certainly put up a good fight. And Gold Rathian for sure also puts up a fight, where the Anomaly Investigation version of it, poison attacks are just really out there. It reminds me a lot of the now additional Apex Master Rank Rathian. It's really on that same tier, where it's really just gonna put up a hurt on you if you're not necessarily too well prepared. And lastly, 7-star Anomaly Investigation Flaming Espinas is just a disappointment all around. There's just really nothing else I can actually say about it. Normal Espinas is kind of like a disappointment. Already has an anomaly version, but the 7-star Flaming Espinas version is just not really much of a challenge. I just don't necessarily know what went wrong here. It feels like it's just slower. It feels like it's just supposed to be harder, but most people kind of know to get out of the way of his biggest dangerous attacks. So ultimately, it just doesn't necessarily feel like a monster that was probably put together well. And I'm not necessarily too sure as to why that is. When it comes to the follower quest, I love the addition of the fact that you can now bring so many followers along to just about every single available quest in offline mode. Of course, some of the quests that are supposed to be meant for online, you can do that too, but this of course makes it so much easier for you to be able to do all those quests you haven't necessarily done already. You can just go ahead and do those offline. You don't have to worry about finding people online. And the followers now can be tweaked to be more aggressive. Now, they're not necessarily ultimately as aggressive as you may want them to be, or even do all the damage you want them to do. But that addition alone, I think, is just such a welcome change of pace, that I think most people are really happy with those changes. Now, there have been a lot of quality of life improvements when it comes to just some of the weapons have seen plenty of changes. And probably not as many as we were hoping, since we were hoping that more weapons begin to see balances as the developer challenges are something of a, I guess, push for developers to go ahead and make changes for specific weapons. And we're still seeing just the effects of that. Gun lances are certainly getting a lot of love. I saw bows also getting some love as well. Dual blades, of course, continually to get love because they're extremely powerful and very fan favorite. And of course, Inseglaive is now in the next free title update, seems to be poised to be able to get some changes there as well. So for now, it just seems like the changes are all for the better, and most weapons are certainly starting to pick up on that. The last thing, of course, I want to mention is, of course, the new layered weapons, which have been just continually a sticking point to some people. They are still complaining that there are now like plushy versions of these weapons and things of that nature, and somehow they ruined the experience. I didn't necessarily feel like buying any of them. I would never actually use them. I don't think they necessarily fit the theme of the game, but I'm not necessarily too against Capcom doing this at this point in time. As long as they continue to give us free armors, free DLC, and maybe even down the road, free weapon DLC options, layered weapon options, that is. I think I'll be completely fine with this. But until they actually do that, I'll still have some reservations regarding that. But for now, you know, I can understand why they are doing it. It may spell doom for the future, but for now, it's not really that much of a problem for me personally. But of course, everyone has a different opinion on this different topic for sure. But once again, I want to encourage all of you to let me know what is your favorite addition for the third free title update. What is the least thing you liked on the free title update? And certainly do let me know in the comments. If you're brand new to my channel, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Hit the bell to receive notifications when the videos go up. And as always, thank you so much for watching. See ya.